In spite of the field having players like Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, and many others, the arbiter has asked to start the game. Hans is unsure whether he should start the clock or not. Aronian is still not here. The first game of 30 plus 30 ended in a draw between them. Hans was clearly pressing in that game, but Aronian managed to save the draw, and now it's time for Levon to have the white pieces. He adjusts his pieces, and this Levon with the white pieces opens with 1d4, and you can see that his queen has now opened up, and Hans responds back with d5, a central move, just gaining space, symmetry on the board. Levon plays the queen's gambit move. His queen is protecting that pawn. Hans takes it. Queen takes c4, a good move here. And look at this bishop eyeing the queen. Hans instantly plays pawn to f6, opening up the bishop. Levon comes back, queen to c3. And now Hans decides to open up his own bishop here with pawn to c6. The knight jumps in to the center. A good move by Levon Aronian, and Hans Niemann brings out his knight as well. It seems like white has more space in the center. Black is playing more with his pieces. f3 played, trying to build up a strong center here with e4. But d4 pawn could become potentially weak. Knight comes to d6, and remember there's this knight b5 idea to win this pawn. So a4 played, stopping that. And Hans plays his bishop to f7. He wants to castle short here. And let's imagine you play a move like e4, it's possible. And for now, Levon just says, I'll get my bishop out. It's a safe move, bishop f2, useful. And Hans quickly short castles here. The knight goes to d2, finishing development, also opening up the route for short castling. Rook comes to d8. As we said, there is pressure down on the d pawn, but Levon castles. Now you can see that if white gets e4, white would have plenty of space, and so Hans now tries to create something on the king side with h5. Maybe not the best. e4 in the center for Levon. a6 played. Black is actually a bit too passive here. Don't know how to create some play here. f4, f5 could be very strong. He goes rook e1 first. Levon is taking care of his center. Ooh, look at this. Hans, beautiful idea to put pressure on the d4 pawn. Knight jumps to b3, b5 played. And look at this move. Amazing move here. e5 played. He takes b takes a4, but remember, if he had played the move knight f5 here, d5 was what Levon wanted to do, and after takes, there is pressure on f5. Such deep ideas. E takes d6 taken, ab3, he takes on e7. Insane. The game is becoming super complicated. Rook e8, but Hans believes that he can win back this pawn. Maybe rook d7 was better. Now knight b4 actually can really be very strong. He finds it. Knight to b4. The bishop opens up here. He's putting pressure on the c6 pawn. Takes it. Levon is not at all afraid of the rook coming in. And look at the times on the clock. Hans has 1 minute 29 seconds. Levon has 22 minutes. Pawn push now. Kind of important. You can also take on a7, by the way, which is what I believe Levon is thinking. d5 played. He goes knight to f4. And now knight e7 check. Rook takes. Rook takes. Attacking the bishop here on a7. He first takes the queen. Pawn takes. And now bishop takes f2 check. King takes f2. And Hans takes back the pawn here with knight takes d5. But what a move. If you take the rook here, then I have simply bishop takes rook. So f5 played here by Hans Niemann, hoping for bishop d5. But now Levon has a very strong tactical move. Rook takes f7. If the king takes the rook, bishop d5 is curtains. So he takes the bishop. And now rook to b7 played. He pushes his pawn forward to e3. It's super complicated still. I mean, Levon is exchange up, but Hans has these pawns, knight f4, and he's very tricky. If you take here on b3, he wants to take on g2. So g3, kicking the knight away. A check, king to e2, and he plays b2. Rook comes calmly to defend the pawn. 16 minutes for Levon. He's played super quick. Rook d8, defending the knight. And white takes, king takes e3. Now knight e5. If you take the pawn, he wants to give a fork here. So rook b4, rook comes to c8. And now f4 played here by Levon. Hans plays a5. The rook moves to a4 square, attacking the pawn, and check to the king. King moves to d3. Rook check. And now if you go back to c2, maybe some checks here have to be a bit carefully done. Rook d4 and rook b8, defending the pawn, and h3 played. With this move, the knight moves away, king goes to c2, b2 would be hanging, and Hans has been outplayed here. He gets back in his chair. He is not so happy with this. He resigns respectfully, and Levon Aronian becomes the champion of Las Vegas freestyle chess with a smile on his face. Gets up, winning $200,000. Hans Niemann finishes second with $140,000. Let's have a look at that key moment where everything shifted. In this position, where black played the move b5, Levon very quickly pushed his pawn to e5. And this was a very interesting decision by Levon, because Hans took on a4, and after ed, ab, d takes e7, got a great position. If rook to d7 would have been played, now knight b4 wouldn't have been as strong, because there's also pressure on the d4 pawn, and knight d4 would work. But in the game, he went rook e8, and then knight b4 was super strong, and white went on to win the game. I was also thinking that in such a position, after e5, one would be really afraid of this move knight f5, because you have 1, 2, 3 attackers, 4 to be precise, and this could be something which is very important to calculate. Because if you make a simple move like knight c5, then already takes is winning a pawn, and if you put your other knight here, hoping that this knight on b3 defends it, there is still the tactic knight takes d4, and if you take with the bishop here, then rook takes d4, knight takes, and bishop c5. So it was all a lot of pressure, but I'm pretty sure that Levon had noticed this beautiful tactical idea d5, which is what makes this game very special. Because firstly, if bishop f2, I have knight f2 unleashing an attack on the knight. The other is, if you play c takes d5, then I play a takes b5, and here you will see that he cannot take back because of the attack on a7. And in case of bishop f2, you can go back knight f2, attacking the knight on f5, and this is a great position here for for white. So this idea with e5 was very, very interesting by Levon.